Do you struggle making sympathy cards? I know I do. Here's a couple of ideas for you. Come on in. My wide angle lens is not working right again, so today we'll be using just my camera lens, and if I get a little out of frame once in a while, I'll have to apologize in advance. That video that I did yesterday finished out one piece of paper, and I'll be showing you those cards in detail at the end, along with whatever cards we make today. 49 and Market does a great job on giving you all these little extra things that you can use on the branding strips, and on the inside of the cover page has always got interesting things on it as well. These are the two scraps that I had left from the first 12 by 12 sheet that I used, and we may be able to use those today. So let me get this stuff out of here. I have some of these bubbles and baubles left, and we probably will be using some of those. Today I thought we would use some woodware stamps, as well as a Crafter's Companion stamp set. I like those music notes on this paper. It works really, really well. This video is going to be a little long, and I'm going to apologize about that in the very beginning here, so just stick with it. It's a creative process. Now, when I open my stamps like this, I don't use this adhesive strip. I cut it right here. I can slip it in and out easily that way, and I don't have to try to work it around that adhesive strip every time. So just something that I do. I'm not going to stamp a lot on this paper, but I do think I might put just a little bit of iced spruce on that card to kind of pull up the greenish tinge just a bit. And I'm probably using these with some of the music notes. Let me get these stamps all ready to go. So I have cut my card base at 5 1/4 by 10 1/2, and I've scored it at 5 1/4. So this is a 5 1/4 inch square card then, and that's what we'll be using. Let's start on this one because I want to add just a little bit of ink. Now, there is a little bit of rose color in this here and up in here. I'm not sure it's going to show up really well on the camera, but Tattered Rose matches that color perfectly. Now I'm going to hand stamp these rather than block them, because I don't want to have a complete image of any of these stamps on here. And it has to be a little kind of a loose process, so I just do a little tap and go here and there. And you can see it just adds a little more interest into some of those spots that possibly might be just a little bit bare. They don't have to be exactly perfectly straight. This one's a little small for me to hand stamp, but I'm going to do some with these little spots here. And then some of these smaller ones. There. Now that gives us a little bit more something to work with. I do think I'm going to add just a little bit of Tattered Rose back into those flowers, just to make them come off the page just a touch. I'm going to water my ink down, because you know you can always add a little more, but you can't take it away. Doesn't work that way, does it? And all I do is to wet my brush, not super wet. You can tell it's not really wet enough to cause any raising up of your paper. This will fade when it dries. And all I want to do is to bring these flowers just a little bit more to the front in the card. And by adding just a little bit of extra shading to that, and you can already see that it's starting to pull them up a little bit off the page that way. This is a process that I just really enjoy doing. You'll see me work it often. I don't usually work off of patterns. And I like to add ink to paper. It's just a process that I find stimulates my creativity, and I really enjoy it. Now you can see those flowers now become more prominent in that. I want to add a little bit more of this tattered rose along the outside of this card. Not enough to be prominent, but just a little bit of extra color on there. There. Let me get this stuff out of the way. Now, let's see, what else do we need here? I think that's a little bit much on that. But I do think that this might be kind of nice. A little anchor on that. I'm thinking this is going to turn into perhaps a sympathy card. It's just a nice, peaceful looking card. I have some sentiments that I have already gone ahead and stamped to save some time. So I think we'll use this one. We will have to tone it down just a little bit though. And possibly this torn piece might work really well. I don't care too much for that black line, but the other piece doesn't have much of it. And this side doesn't have any at all. Now see, I like that. I think that's going to work just fine. Let me go ahead and glue this piece down to the card base because I'm not going to add any dimension to that. And I probably put more tape down than perhaps you're used to seeing, but my cards don't always go out right away. I keep them in a stash until somebody needs cards or I need to send one. And so I like to make sure that adhered to the card base and don't come up. So it was this one. And then I think I will trim this out by hand and make it a little bit more, have a little bit more organic feel to it than those harsh straight lines. A lot of people don't like fussy cutting, but I find that the more fussy cutting I do, the more I really enjoy it. I know I'm a little weird that way, but it's relaxing to me. It's just one more way you can hold that piece of paper in your hand and do something handwork with it. There. I think we still need to tone that white down just a little bit, and I'm going to do that by adding just a little bit of the iced spruce and some music notes. I think that'll be just what that needs. And then I'm going to edge it with the tattered rose just to coordinate it with the card itself. So this is a pretty quick card to put together, and it's all because of the pattern on that paper. Now where'd my little piece go? What's this one? I think I'm going to put a few little music notes on that too, to kind of coordinate it with the other paper. And then I'll need to see. I don't think I want to bring that to the edge. I'm going to cut that at 4 3/4. Let me get my trimmer. While I have my trimmer here, I am reminded that I was going to show you how to tear a thin piece of paper. See, when I started with this piece, it was not very wide. It was only 1 inch wide, and it's a little challenging to me to put a tear on that. And so I used my trimmer guide here and lock it in and hold it good and tight, and then tear it against the cutting deck. And it works really well that way. I couldn't have torn a regular piece like that and had it come out and be roadworthy at all. It would have looked like I tore it. Oof. Yeah, it wouldn't have been pretty. Let's just suffice it to say. I don't want to cover any of these flowers, but I think that's going to be pretty simple and straightforward. Bringing my tattered rose back in. I don't want a whole lot of it, but I do want some extra rose color in that piece. And I'm going to set this low because I don't want it to be prominent and get up into those flowers at all. I'm going to go ahead and put a little elevation on the sentiment itself. Some people don't put embellishments on their sympathy cards. It doesn't bother me. I put them on if I want to. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Just kind of depends. I think this card would benefit from just a little embellishing with some of these that are part of that paper line. And they're all kind of unique looking, so they don't add static interest. Now, you know, when you're using these kinds of embellishments, you want to do 3s or 5s of things, and it helps your eye move around a little bit on your card. It just keeps things moving around so your eye sees different areas of the card. I do believe on the inside I'm going to put a little strip, finding the right one. This one I think will be fine on the inside of that. It works just fine. I like to leave just a little tiny white edge so that if my cards are not cut just exactly perfectly, it doesn't show through. First card's done, I'll figure out what I want to put sentiment-wise on the inside of this card when I get ready to send it, but I think that's a really pretty card. I might go back and add a little wink of Stella to some of these flowers, but I'm not sure I'm even going to do that. If I do, I'll do it before we post them up in the end. This is a woodware stamp, and it was designed by Francois Reed, and I just think it's pretty. And probably if I get a little angle going, we'll get enough coverage on that. Make sure it's down here in the corner. It's amazing working without that wide angle lens how much the footprint is reduced. There. I think that's going to be fine. We'll see. If not, we'll flip it over and use the back side of that paper. This particular pack of paper has some really nice laser cuts, and some of which are butterflies and moths, and I think we might use one of those on this card. Oh yeah, I think that's nice. So I might put just a little filler in here and there. And there. That completely fills that up a little bit. And it doesn't look like I stamped it crooked, which I did. All right. I'll put my Misty away for right now. And we'll go back in. I'm going to add some extra color to those butterflies using the same technique. I want to use a little more color. This one's going to be way too intense, obviously, but perhaps some of these tan ones, that one might work. We'll see. But I was thinking more along the lines of this rose-colored one. It's a violet of some sort. Let me see. Where is it? Victorian violet. Let's pull that one out to use it as well. And possibly this one. That's rich cocoa. So we'll use these. This one and that one. And tendered rose. Okay, again, I'm just going to dampen my brush and pull my ink. And all I'm doing is to try to give the butterfly image a little more intense color to pull up off the page. If you don't get your brush real wet, then none of the rest of your ink bleeds out into the process. Since I started doing this ink blending with my brush this way, I rarely used my alcohol markers. They just kind of sit over there out of the way, because this is a process that I find very enjoyable and relaxing. My vision is not as good as it used to be, and sometimes dealing with alcohol markers, I feel like I'm just not quite good enough anymore to use those. I don't know. There, let's switch off to the Victorian Velvet and see what it does. Oh, that's going to be kind of pretty, isn't it? Soft and subtle. Yeah, I think I like that. Oh, those are pretty. And as I said, they're just very subtle, but it does lift them up off the page. Now, I wonder if we want to put just a tiny, tiny bit of rich cocoa on those. There. Now, what I'm going to do is to set my block, a couple of them, on top of that and let it flatten while it dries, because having added that much ink to that paper, it may raise up the grain in the paper just a little bit. So let me let that dry for a few minutes and I'll come right back. Okay, that's dry now and flattened out. And I think I'm going to use this little piece of lace on that and this butterfly out of the laser cuts. It kind of all coordinates nicely with that. And I'm going to make this into a sympathy card as well. I want to fussy cut this sentiment again because I think it softens it just a little bit. And I don't want a lot of ink on this. I just want something that'll cause the white in the card to stand out a little more. There. I'm going to do the same with this piece, just by tapping it on the edges. Now, when you mount this up on the white card base, you can see the gray around the outside much better. This was one of the branding strips. Put just a little bit on this white to tone it back a little bit. And then I'll probably put that little laser cut butterfly up on a piece of dimensional foam. Lots of times I glue these down the middle and then curl the wings, but this is fairly heavy cardstock and I don't know if it would crack or not, so I'm just going to do this one flat. And that ties all the elements together on that card. So I think this strip right here is going to be nice for the inside of that. I'm going to cut it at 6. There we go. There, I think that's nice. It's just a little peaceful piece of artwork to send somebody that's grieving. This is Julia Laird. I'm going to go ahead and post the rest of those cards in at the end so you can see what they all end up looking like. I have a little butterfly here. I'm going to put in there. There. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so these are the cards that I have made with that paper pack so far. You'll see that I have gone ahead and added a little ink coloring in here the same way we did today. And on this one as well, I added ink to those flowers. Now this card has a little pop-up inside of it, which is kind of a nice fun thing to do. This is the one we did today, Remembering You in Prayer. And you can see how pretty those flowers look now with that additional tattered rose ink in them. And I do think I'm going to go back and add a little Wink of Stella to this one. It needs it, just for a little extra interest on that card. And I kind of had a bird theme going on the first ones that I made. And I used a lot of that muted color added to the paper itself. And this is that same swallow that I used to make the pop-up in that other card. And you'll notice on this one I only colorized on this strip here. This doesn't have any colorization in it at all. And this is the last one. Aren't those die cuts pretty? This of course is a stamp, and this is the Meadows is on one of those tab forms that came with the die cuts. This is Julia Laird, and I hope you've enjoyed making cards with me today, that you'll subscribe and come back soon. Bye-bye.